Hey guys, it's RL back. How's it going? Day 16 was a tough one. I felt really unmotivated and very unproductive. I did very little today. I think today was a really hard day. I didn't step foot outside at all once today. And I think I definitely feel that. The question is then, I have to think back, like, what did I really spend my time doing today? Right? If I wasn't doing YouTube or video games or stuff like that, like, what was I really doing? Well, when I think about it, what was I doing? Let me think. I woke up at 8 in the morning to my alarm. But then I was like, I'm tired. So I slept in. And then I woke up to a call at around like 11 to schedule an appointment. And that's when I decided to get up. I'm trying to think what I did. I ate something. And then I know that I was in ChatGPT a lot today, just like doing random research in different things and like using like agentic AI to do a bunch of stuff. And I think I just kind of got into like a rabbit hole of like different research thingies. Like, I'm trying to think what it is that I did today. Because I really didn't do that much. So to think about like, what did I really spend my time doing? I mean, I was listening to podcasts, but I wasn't just listening to podcasts. I was doing other stuff. I was cleaning up a little bit. So I did a little bit of cleaning. And then I called my bank. I was on the phone with my bank for a while. I think it's the first time that like it feels frustrating to me to like not know where my time went. Like it really feels like my time just like passed me by today. I'm trying to think like what I wasted my time doing. I listened to the shiur of like for this week for my smicha program. I learned a little bit of Torah today. And then I went on like a 2-hour like oh yeah, I went to like a deep dive of like trying to see if I could like upgrade my computer and like what like parts I needed and which ones were compatible, because like my laptop is definitely like just not like, the hardware could be a lot better and it would be cheaper. It would be much cheaper for me to just purchase the parts and upgrade it than for me to purchase a whole new machine. And yeah, because like I only have like 256 gigabytes of storage and only 16 gigs of RAM. And like I can very easily bump that up to 32 gigs of RAM and 1 or 2 terabytes of storage, which would like really, also, get a new thermal plate so I could, that there could be just like temperature management and things like that. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, and like a new battery, because it's just like my computer dies so fast because the battery is just worn. And so if I just got a new battery, I can get a lot more life out of it. And like you can get like decent batteries that would extend like that would at least like 4x my current battery life. And like all of that would be under like $500. And then I don't know if I'd be comfortable like doing all of that myself. I would definitely be like a little bit worried. So I might just like go to like a computer shop and like have them do it for me and pay them like $200 for labor or something like that. But that's still cheaper than buying a whole new machine for like $1,600. Um, so that was kind of my deep dives for today. But I didn't really do what I set out to do today. Like, I really wanted to get out of the house and get up early and like do stuff, just really just like do things outside the house. And I kind of became a little bit of a hermit today. And then at some points today, I started feeling pretty sad about losing my mom. And sometimes I think, I kind of think back to the moment that, I was told the news that my mother passed away. And I mean, it wasn't a shock because my mother was very sick and she was in hospice, and it was very much the end for her. And I think I tried really being there for her physically, and for some reason, like, even in like her last moments, she couldn't respond, she couldn't do anything really, she was just kind of there. It seemed like she was just holding on and didn't want to let go when I was there. And weirdly enough, because like, she was like, we thought her last day was going to be like, we were there for what we thought was going to be her last day. And she ended up pulling through for a whole nother like day, for a whole nother like night, basically. And I think she was just, I don't know, there was something about, I think I got the message that like my mom didn't want us to be there. Like, I think it was her form of like protecting us as like a mother. It's been hard. It's been really hard. And it's already been like 7 months, which is like, it still feels like it happened yesterday. This feels so different from my father's death. My father's death was both a surprise, but also not a surprise. Unfortunately, my father committed suicide. Um, and we were there for him in his last. My parents were separated, and then we moved. We basically like. My parents would have been divorced for a while at that point, and my mom was like, he's really not doing well. My father was a drug addict, and things were really not going well for him. We were trying to help him over and over and over again, and it really just feel like in the end it wasn't enough. But for some reason, it really does feel like my mom's passing is a lot harder, even though it was through natural causes, or quote unquote natural causes. But I think it's frustrating when like like life kind of hits you like a ton of bricks, and like you want to get your life together, and you want to move forward with your life, and you're trying to build a new family and just try to get ahead, because it's kind of felt like I've been down for a very long time, and I am really trying. I really think that I'm putting in effort. I just think that there are sometimes days that are like incredibly difficult. And I think it's hard to like give myself that grace because it feels like, you know, if I'm easy on myself, then I'll just let myself go and then everyone around me will suffer. I think that's a genuine fear of mine. And so that's kind of what keeps me from like, I mean, one, I think it keeps me beating myself up, but it also, for me, for some reason, I feel like it keeps me from like fully falling apart. For some reason, like now that I'm talking about it, like I'm getting really, uh, really emotional. And it really feels like I haven't like opened up like this in a long time. And now that I'm like this, I'm like debating whether to even upload this video. But there's like a voice in my mind that tells me like it'll be good for me, you know? Because I think it's a step in the process of me learning how to open up. I think it's really hard for me to admit that I've had a hard life. Because I can always count my blessings and I can always, you know, like be grateful for the things that I did have. But I think that there are some times that I just have to accept that that's the case. And that, you know, probably am really lucky to have gone through the things that I have and be in a place where I'm married and, you know, I have a roof over my head and, you know, I have a job and, you know, like I've never done any crimes, never did any like, you know, hard drugs or anything, and, you know, always stayed clean and always, you know, just like, you know, didn't let the traumas of my life, you know, just ruin it. Like the fact that I, you know, am where I am is, I think, nothing short of a miracle. Because I feel like there's a lot of people who have gone through similar things to me, and, you know, that's caused them to go down the wrong path. And, you know, by the grace of God and the grace of Hashem, like I really have stayed on the right path, I think. You know, although it feels bumpy sometimes, you know. I didn't put on film today until like right before Shkia. For those of you that don't really understand what that means, basically I didn't put on the the leather straps you see that like Jews put when they pray in the morning. You know, you're really supposed to do it in the morning, but like you could technically do it right before, you know, sunset, or even some people say like, you know, a little bit after sunset. But you know, I really did kind of wait until the last moment to like check that box for myself. But I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I'm becoming someone who will at least do something, and I'm not gonna accept an all or nothing life. Because that kind of thinking hasn't really gotten me anywhere good. And I always feel bad for you guys watching this one because I feel like there's so many long pauses in my videos, and I just don't really know how to edit. So like, and a part of me doesn't really want to edit because I'm just like, you know, I feel like we can't really edit real life, like that. We can't just like cut out moments. Um, and there's a part of me that's like, and maybe this is just me sorting some kind of cognitive dissonance, to be lazy in the fact that I don't edit my videos unless I'm like, like unless I accidentally like say something that I'm like, for the safety of me and my family, shouldn't say that, in terms of like information about like where I live and stuff like that. And yeah, I feel bad for you guys. But anyone that has to watch this video. But yeah. Today's been hard. I don't think there's any denying that. And I'm just trying to like, get back on track, tonight. I think that part of that process is gonna look like, me trying to really actually go to bed like on time instead of staying up late. And refilling my CPAP with water. I think God I've been using it. Just refilling it with water. And putting away stuff that needs to go into the fridge for the night. But lately I've been really like invested into trying to like research my roots, because it's like, I grew up in a Moroccan household. I know that I'm Moroccan. Everything about my life was Moroccan, from the food to the music to the language to the culture, everything, But now it feels like with so much of my family dead, it feels really hard to be able to like connect to those roots, especially since like I'm the kind of, like my parents were not religious. And like I kind of returned to being more religious, and like reconnecting with that. And so like, my family never really, I mean, especially once they immigrated to, to Israel from Morocco because they had to leave. They a lot of them were kind of forced to to kind of integrate into like more Ashkenazi lifestyles. Like my mother had to be sent to, or like like my mother was sent to like a British like Ashkenazi boarding school. Well, pretty much all of my mom's siblings, don't really know like Moroccan tunes for things, unless except for the ones that like stayed in like the village where she's from, which is to this day still a very Moroccan village in Israel. And I just was never really exposed because I went to a pretty Ashkenazi school growing up. I went to a pretty Ashkenazi like yeshiva, and so it was always kind of like I had to deal with a lot of racism, unfortunately, and a lot of like being shown that there's only one way to be Jewish when that's not true. We're all Jewish at the end of the day, and I love my Ashkenazi brothers. I just think that, part of me wants to like really reconnect with my roots because, my grandfather on my mother's side, Aaron, alav shalom, he was a paitan, meaning that he was like a liturgical singer, basically. Like, like he would be the one singing during prayers and doing, chazanut and things like that, leading prayers in the traditional Moroccan style. And he was from Casablanca. And I think that for me, I've always loved singing. I've always loved music. And for me, like, I've always wanted to really reconnect with it. You know, and I still remember the way that my father did kiddush, the blessing over the wine on Friday nights. And, you know, I've just kind of picked up on those tunes, but again, like, because my family wasn't religious, like a lot of the religious exposure they had here in America was with Ashkenazi Judaism, so they kind of just like threw away all of their, you know, old tunes, you know, and they actually even like see it as like archaic. They're like, you know, they like don't like that kind of singing anymore because it's a different kind of singing. You know, the singing, it's hard to explain, but the kind of singing in like Moroccan music is not like European music at all. It's a different style completely. And so like, you know, my family doesn't like it. Um and I've just found myself really wanting to reconnect with it because it feels like, you know, you know, with both my parents gone, it feels like there's like this big, and also all my grandparents gone, it feels like there's this big gap between me and my heritage, right? Because it's not like I have one parent who's Moroccan. I have both parents who are Moroccan, whose parents are Moroccan, whose grandparents are Moroccan. And, you know, as far as I know, from the research that I've done from my dad's side, I mean, it's very likely that, you know, my father's paternal line is like fully like Berber Jewish that have been there for thousands of years. And, so I think it's just like really trying to connect with that again, you know, learning tunes and how you know, and like how they do things. It really is feels kind of like a different world at times. You know, like Moroccan Jews do this thing called bakashot, which I know that other Sephardi Jews do. Um, but the ones in Morocco are like specific to Morocco, which are kind of these like supplementary kind of prayers, and like for some reason they're like separated by like parasha, by like the weekly portion of the Torah reading. And so like I was like learning them, and it's like really you know, and like learning how to read you know, like the Torah, and you know, like it's called Ta'amei Amikra, like learning how to read the Torah portions and the Haftarah portions and like the portions from Tanakh, and like the way that they were uniquely sung, to the way that the words were pronounced. I remember when I was in high school and I was trying to, you know, really connect to it in terms of the way that I read Hebrew and spoke Hebrew. I mean, I guess in like my spoken Hebrew, I still speak like a modern Israeli. But at least when it comes to like when I learn and when I pray, I try to stick to the way that, you know, my grandparents and my great grandparents and my, you know, the way that they prayed. And I remember that I was in Gemara class and I was reading. No, I was in Chumash class and I was reading from the Torah. And I remember my Rebbe telling me, you know, he was Ashkenazi. He looked at me and he said, "Stop with the fake accent." So then I switched to like an American accent, which is not what I'm used to growing up. And I think I'm just really trying to reconnect with it, because especially now, because I'm like, I feel like if I don't now, I'm gonna lose it. You know, and like the Moroccan Jewish culture is so beautiful. It's so deep and so rich. Like, because it's also not monolithic. You know, like the Jews from the north of Morocco to the, you know, to the central of Morocco, even from village to village, it was all different. From city to city, like everyone did things differently. At its height, Morocco had like 350,000 Jews. That was like towards like the end of like the 19th century. Now, unfortunately, there's only 3,000. So, um, it's it's just something that I've been really wanting to reconnect to, because I think that since losing my parents, like I've been I felt very alone, and it feels like when I reconnect with my roots, like it feels like, you know, they it makes me feel like, you know, like the spirits of like of the people that I come from, you know, are there with me. You know, that or like the spirit of them, not their actual spirits. Say like, you know, their souls, you know, God willing, are in Gan Eden. And it helps me to feel less alone, which I think has kind of been like the primary, I would say, like feeling or state of being that I felt that I've been feeling for a very long time. So it's kind of where I'm at. I think I'll leave it there. You know, it's been 25 minutes, and I think, you know, I've gone on long enough. So I appreciate you guys for hearing me check in, and as always, feel free to comment. You know, I'm very specific if it's only to tell you to comment if you want. I don't really care about subscriptions or likes or whatever. Like, all that stuff is like, doesn't mean anything to me. So ultimately, again, this is about me staying on track with the things that I say I'm gonna do. And I think comments are just a way to just interact with people, you know, who are seeing this, right? Because, you know, I'm not the only one seeing this. Other people are seeing this, and, you know, I think that I really hope that me doing this is good in some way. I find it to be helpful to me personally. I just really hope that it's something that's also good for other people as well. If not, then, you know, what can I really do? But with that, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.